Yeah, I am shit. Okay, I think we sound fine now. I apologize about that. Yeah, the internal microphone on my computer is a little messed up. So we're fine now. Give me 1 second. All right, sweet. Okay, all's clear. Okay, yeah. Like I said, in today's stream, we are going to be covering a ton of great New York Mets news. We are going to be covering the New York Mets and the Miami Marlins series summary. We're going to be summarizing what happened in that series. So all of that great stuff, what went wrong, what went good, pretty much the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I like to say. So we're going to be covering that. Then, of course, one of the biggest series for this New York Mets team and the Atlanta Braves. The biggest series coming up for both of these teams. I have the Braves jersey on now. We are going to be covering the biggest things to watch in that series. So we're going to be covering that. And then, of course, we're going to be going over some Mets news, going over in regards to, obviously, the New York Mets calling up Francisco Alvarez. So we are going to be covering that. And, of course, all of your guys' comments, questions, concerns. As always, I always love to go over what you guys have to say in the chat. So, yeah, we are obviously going to be covering that. So, yeah, like I said, before we get into all of this, please, everyone, smash that like button. Turn on those post notifications. Tell your friends about this channel. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything related to the New York Mets, don't hesitate. Drop it in the comment section below, and we will dive right into it and talk about it. So, yeah. Otherwise, let's stop wasting any more time and let's dive into this New York Mets and Miami Marlins series summary. So getting things started with the New York Mets and the Miami Marlins, obviously taking a little look-see. The New York Mets were able to take one of two, which, okay, it's not horrible. I would have much rather them taken these two games, but it happens. Getting started with game one, the Mets dropped game one by a score of 6-4. Definitely a really rough game for this New York Mets squad. Obviously, Carlos "Cookie" Carrasco was on the bump for the Mets, and yeah, he was definitely a burnt cookie, that's for sure. Obviously, Carrasco, 3 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. Obviously, 67 pitches overall. 41 of those were in the strike zone. So, I mean, his pitches were in the strike zone. He was just getting hit up and beat up and really just a lot of bat-to-ball contact, really, with Carrasco. His slider wasn't looking on point. And overall, he just really didn't have it. Obviously, he did give up that home run in the 3rd inning to J.J. Bleday, which just cleared the wall. Like I said, the ball was carrying. I mean, that home run in the 3rd inning against Carrasco was only 339 feet. I mean, you tell me how many ballparks that's gone in. So, I mean, I hate to use the term, luck, unlucky, but yeah, Carrasco definitely got a little unlucky when it came to the ball traveling. It just kept carrying and eventually was able to make its way out of the ballpark, which really sucked. But, that happens in the game sometimes. So Carrasco, really unfortunate outing. Hands it over to the bullpen. Trevor Williams comes in. 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 strikeouts. First inning was clean, went back out for a second, and obviously giving up 2 more runs, which really was really unfortunate to see. David Peterson came in for 2 innings of relief. Pretty clean outing, a hit, a walk, a strikeout, 32 pitches. So found the zone well. Maybe that'll be a spot for David Peterson in the future. We know how clean David Peterson has been in the bullpen. So, we're honestly going to have to see how things can go there. Maybe that could be a future spot for him for the rest of the season. And, of course, the playoffs most likely. When it comes to next year, I guess, the Mets will approach that as it gets closer. So, really no need to press on that just now. And then following that, Tyler McGill came in for an inning. 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, got out of the inning clean, obviously. So that was good to see. And then Edwin Diaz came to finish things off, obviously giving up an inning, a hit, and 3 strikeouts. So good to see Diaz continue to assert his dominance in this game. Obviously, we know that. Obviously, they were out of it. For most of this game, they obviously shown a lot of light, but just not able to get the job done completely. So it sucks, but oh, well, the Mets had plenty of opportunities and they just were not able to execute. The pitching really let them down. Offensively, they stranded a lot of runners in scoring position. They were not able to hit Pablo Lopez. I mean, this dude was cruising, obviously. They let Pablo Lopez go into the 7th inning until he was taken out. And yeah, so like I said, I mean, only 5 hits, 3 runs against Pablo Lopez. I mean, that's not, that's not horrible, but unfortunately your pitching kind of let you down beforehand. And I guess that's something that the Mets don't usually see often. So, I mean, it happens, but it sucks. So obviously, yeah, the Mets unfortunately do drop this game. In terms of the offense, I mean, they got some stuff done. Heading on into the 4th inning, Pete Alonso has a 3-run home run to left, his 40th on the season, 388 feet, to bring in himself, Brandon Nimmo, and of course, Francisco Lindor. And then heading on into the 8th inning, Jeff McNeil scores on a balk. Obviously, Richard Blyer comes into relief in the 8th inning and has 3 back-to-back-to-back balks. Obviously, Jeff McNeil starting off on first base with a hit. Later scores during one plate appearance from Pete Alonso. So I'm sitting there and my volume's off, and I keep thinking to myself, like, are they not, charging Alonso with the count? Because, there were, 3 balls outside the zone, and it still said, 1-0, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's just an error. And then he took ball 4, what I assumed, and I'm like, what's going on? I raise the volume, and I see McNeil's running around to first, from second, then to third, and then home, and I'm like, damn, Richard Blyer. So back-to-back-to-back balks. Obviously, Richard Blyer has never had a balk in his major league career. Gives up 3 in the span of 1 inning for 1 plate appearance. So that's really wild, obviously. Was he balking? It was really hard to tell, but the first base umpire did declare it a balk. Blyer was not happy. He was ejected, but that's what happened. So Mets lose this game by a score of 6-4. Carrasco gets the L. And getting on to game 2, where brighter things happen, the Mets win game 2 by a score of 5-4. Obviously, a very stressful game, but they got the job done at the end of the day. Obviously, in terms of the pitching, Taijuan Walker, 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. 95 pitches, 60 of them in the strike zone. Not a horrible appearance from Walker, I'll say for the least. I mean, when it came to a lot of his mechanics, I'd say he looked pretty decent for the most part with a splitter slider. Got into a couple jams early on, a lot of bases loaded jams, but was able to get out of it. So that's all that really matters at the end of the day. He was able to get out of it. So that's good. Yeah, overall, I mean, really no, when it came to Walker, I only think the unfortunate thing was, for the first 4 innings, he wasn't really getting any run support. So, I mean, 3 runs, that's not horrible for a guy like Taijuan Walker. I mean, the strikeout ratio was there. The walk strikeout ratio was there. The ground balls, the fly balls. So, I mean, I get it. He gave up that barrel in the 4th inning, but, the offense has to help out too. So, not a horrible appearance for Walker. Definitely not his best. Definitely not his worst, I guess you could say. So, yeah, Walker came out after 5 innings. Seth Lugo coming in for 2 innings, giving up a hit, a run, a walk, 3 strikeouts. Okay, whatever. Ottavino comes in. Ottavino with a clean outing, an inning, 2 strikeouts. Edwin Diaz comes in the 9th inning to try and help things out. Obviously, I mean, the 8th inning, my apologies. Edwin Diaz striking out the side, an inning, 3 pitches, 3 strikeouts, 13 pitches, 10 of those were in the strike zone. So really pounding the zone well, looking good. And then Drew Smith, obviously an inning with 2 strikeouts, and very underrated appearance from Drew Smith. He definitely needed it. Obviously stranding that runner on at second base. So really good to have Drew Smith come into clutch that appearance. In terms of this offense, I'm afraid to say this was definitely the Eduardo Escobar day. Obviously, Eduardo Escobar having himself quite a day. Getting started into the offense in the 7th inning, Eduardo Escobar opens up the Mets offense with a 2-run homer to left, 403 feet to bring in himself and Jeff McNeil. Heading on into the 8th inning with bases loaded, Eduardo Escobar reaches on an infield single, obviously to bring in Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo. This is a tie ball game. And heading on into the extra innings, Eduardo Escobar at the bottom of the 10th inning has an RBI single to left to bring in Francisco Lindor. So Eduardo Escobar scoring all 5 of these runs that the Mets scored this game. Obviously, Escobar going 3 for 5 with 1 run and 5 RBIs. So a definitely very good day from Eduardo Escobar. A definitely big needed win considering the Braves lost this game. This game put the Mets back to have sole possession of first place. Definitely Eduardo Escobar, definitely gave me chills. As Gary Cohen said, it's the month of September, which is Eduardo Escobar's month. His press conference was great after the post-game press conference. And you know what? Listen, this is what I say with Escobar. He said back in June or July or whatever, eventually I'm going to give the fans something to cheer about. And boom, he has it right here. The fans were cheering for him. 5 RBIs in the day for Escobar. He has been red hot this September. I don't need to tell you guys. I'm sure everyone could see how well he's been at the plate. Switch hitter. He's hitting from every side, lefty, righty. He's hitting against left-handed pitching. He's hitting against right-handed pitching. He's hitting everything at this rate. So he's doing a phenomenal job. Power, extra base hits, bat-to-ball contact. He's walking. Escobar is really having himself a month. And you know what? I say it like this. Escobar started off the season really bad, had a crappy April, May. He had like that one good week in June, but otherwise pretty bad July, pretty bad August. But you know what? These are the games that matter the most. These are the games that are going to determine, obviously, yes, the Mets have clinched a playoff spot, but they're looking for that NL East title. They want that division spot. And if Escobar could be a big factor to why the Mets get that, I think a lot of Met fans, including myself, will have no problem forgetting Escobar from April to August. And they'll think of, oh, yeah, Escobar in 2022. Yeah, he was responsible for the Mets, September, playoff push, little stuff like that. So like I said, Escobar, keep it up. So really phenomenal game from Escobar. Obviously, Mets win 5-4. Drew Smith gets the W. So really good to see the Mets win, split the series. You would have much rather them have taken 2, but oh well, it happens. So now getting into the biggest series, I think of really all of all series that the Mets and both the Braves have had this season. The Mets and the Atlanta Braves are set to play a 3-game set against each other down in Atlanta. Obviously, this is going to be one of the biggest series that both of these teams have to play against each other. So it's going to be super exciting. Obviously, game 1 will be tonight at 7:20 Eastern Standard Time in Atlanta. Obviously, the Atlanta Braves are 97-59 and have a home record of 56-26. So obviously, the Braves are only a game behind the New York Mets in the National League East. So obviously, if they win tonight, that could tie them. So it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, the Braves are 4-1 in their last 5. They did take the L the other night against the Nationals, but obviously swept the Phillies, took 2 of 3 from the Nationals, and we'll see what they could do against this New York Mets squad. So it's going to be a really interesting series for the Braves. Obviously, the New York Mets coming into this a game ahead of the Atlanta Braves, 98-58, so 40 games over 500. That's kind of what they've been hovering around for really the last couple of weeks. So you like to see that. And of course, the Mets are 47-31 on the road, so pretty adequate splits when they play on the road. Obviously, this is going to be a really, really, really huge series to say for the least. Obviously, getting things started tonight is 7:20 Eastern Standard Time. Jacob deGrom will be on the bump for the New York Metropolitans. Obviously, Jacob deGrom is hoping to have a huge bounce back game. Obviously, we did see Jacob deGrom in his last appearance against the Oakland Athletics, where he got really roughed up. So we're gonna, hope and pray that deGrom has a resurgence. He has a much better outing, and yeah, that is hopefully what we could see from deGrom tonight. Obviously, looking at deGrom's numbers, short sample size, but still 5-3 on the season, a 2.93 ERA, a 0.74 WHIP, 58 1/3 innings pitched, 91 strikeouts. So, like I said, pretty good numbers when it comes to deGrom. Hopefully, like I said, he has his A game on today, especially. He has really good numbers against the Atlanta Braves, obviously, posting just a sub-2 ERA in 27 appearances against the Atlanta Braves in his career. Obviously, we'll see how things can go against there. Obviously, he kind of has pretty decent numbers against the Braves. Really, for the most part, you look at the splits from the Atlanta batters when they faced deGrom, and numbers are pretty good. So you hope that deGrom has his stuff on today. Like I said, going to be really interesting to see how deGrom approaches himself. Obviously, if he could try and get a lot of swinging and misses on his fastball, get that slider intact, that high-end velocity, and hopefully we could expect a really dominant outing from Jacob deGrom, the GOAT. So, yeah, deGrom will be on the bump for the Mets tonight. Obviously, the Braves will have the lefty Max Fried, so we'll see what the Mets could do against Max Fried. Mets do have decent numbers against Max Fried. Obviously, Pete Alonso in 30 at-bats has an average of 267 with 2 home runs and 7 ribbies. So pretty decent numbers there. Obviously, Jeff McNeil in 25 at-bats has a 360 average with 4 ribbies against him. So pretty good numbers there. Maybe a smaller sample size, but obviously Canna in 10 at-bats has 2 home runs, 4 ribbies against him. Let's see who else is Tomas Nido, 10 at-bats, 300 average against him. So, I mean, not horrible numbers. I mean, he is a lefty. We know I've established the Mets really struggle when it comes to hitting left-handed pitching. So, like I said, the Mets are really going to have to try and get their A game on early. And like I said, if Fried for whatever inning, shows some weaknesses in, the early parts of this game, you got to take advantage of that because we've been seeing the Mets do that a lot with lefties this season. They got to take advantage of them early on. So we'll see how things could go against the Mets and the Braves in game 1, 7:20 Eastern Standard. Getting into game 2, which is tomorrow's game, Saturday's game at 7:20 Eastern Standard Time also. First game of October. The New York Mets will have Mad Max Scherzer on the bump for the Mets. Obviously, Scherzer is 11-4 on the season, a 2.13 ERA, a 0.88 WHIP, 139 and 2/3 innings pitched with 169 strikeouts. So those are pretty good numbers for Scherzer. Obviously, looking to make his 23rd appearance on the season for the New York Mets. And obviously, what a better time than when it's really needed and against a pretty scary team, to say for the least. So Scherzer will be on the bump for the Mets. Obviously, Scherzer, like I said, you would hope you can try and get, I don't know, maybe at least 6-7 innings out of him. He's your ace. These are, the games that you count on your aces like DeGrom and Scherzer to go long innings and, give you a beyond average start. So when it comes to Scherzer, obviously mix up his pitches really well. He has a huge pitching arsenal, whether that's the fastball, the slider, the curveball, the changeup, obviously the goal side slider, the back foot door slider. So he could really confuse this Atlanta Braves lineup, who are very high in strikeouts. The Atlanta Braves lineup is a big strikeout home run lineup. I've said it a lot on this channel. So maybe, DeGrom, Scherzer, back-to-back days of high strikeout guys. You could expect some good stuff there. Obviously, the only weakness is, Scherzer can have, he can be a little prone to the solo shot. So just kind of keep that, under your belt. Obviously, keeping in mind this is probably going to be a really low-scoring series. I'm not expecting, these first 2 games to, be like a 7-5 game. I'm projecting like a 4-2, 4-1, 3-1, 3-0 type of game, obviously, back-to-back games with the Battle of the Aces, where the Atlanta Braves are going to have Kyle Wright, who obviously is shooting for his 21st win on the season. So we'll see how he could share against the New York Mets lineup. Mets lineup do have good numbers against Kyle Wright, though. Obviously, Pete Alonso in 11 at-bats has a 364 average, 2 homers and 4 ribbies against Kyle Wright. McNeil, 15 at-bats, a 467 average, 3 ribbies. So like I said, those are the big sample sizes when it comes to that. So hopefully the Mets will be able to take care of business. And getting on to game 3 and the final game of this 3-game set against the Atlanta Braves, 7 o'clock start Sunday night ESPN baseball. For the last Sunday night ESPN baseball game for MLB this year, the New York Mets are going to have Chris Bassitt on the bump for the New York Mets. Obviously, Chris Bassitt is hoping to have a phenomenal outing, and he's been looking good lately, Bassitt. Obviously, Bassitt, taking a look-see at his stats, is 15-8 on the season, 3.27 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP, 179 innings pitched overall, 165 strikeouts. So pretty good numbers when it comes to Bassitt. When it comes to Bassitt, try to limit the long ball. Obviously, you look at those the long ball could definitely be a little bit of a concern for him. So keep the ball in the ballpark. If it's a fly ball, hope it stays in the ballpark. Mix up his pitch as well. We know that he's really good with mixing up his pitch as well. Obviously, we've been seeing a lot lately with Bassitt when facing lefties. He's really throwing to a lot of lefties inside. So when he's facing a guy like Matt Olson or any other lefty in this Atlanta Braves lineup, try to throw inside to them so they could really jam them. And maybe you could see some strikeout numbers there from Bassitt. So yeah, Bassitt making his 30th start on the season. Crazy to think how reliable he's been for this New York Mets team, and he's been healthy. His 30th start. Not many guys do that in a season. So Chris Bassitt making his 30th start, and I believe this would most likely be his last start this season, unless he does somehow pitch in the National Series, which may be a possibility. And of course, for the Atlanta Braves, they will have Charlie Morton. Obviously, Morton. Definitely the Mets do have pretty good numbers when it comes to Charlie Morton. obviously. So we'll see how the Mets could go against Charlie Morton. Obviously, he does have a little bit of a home run problem. Obviously, 26 long balls and 167 innings. So maybe the Mets could take advantage of that. So yeah, that is going to be a really interesting series for the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, most importantly, what I think is, this is pretty much going to determine the division, most likely. I get it. Both of these teams have a series after this. Obviously, the Mets play the Nationals, the Braves play the Marlins, but still, this is probably going to determine the division. And there's multiple outcomes that can come for this. Obviously, the potential 3-game series outcomes. Obviously, if the Mets sweep this 3-game series, which I personally don't see that happening, but if in some miracle the Mets sweep, they would automatically then go on to clinch the NL East. In the scenario, the Mets do win 2 of 3. The Mets would lead by 2 games, and they would be able to clinch with a next win or the other next Atlanta Braves loss. In the scenario, the Mets only go 1 of 3. The NL East will be tied with 3 games to play. Obviously, the Mets would hold on to the NL East tiebreaker, considering that they would have automatically have 1 more games against the Atlanta Braves in their season series. And in some scenario, the Mets do not take a single game this series. Let's say they win 0 and the Braves sweep. That would put the Braves up by 2 games, and that pretty much means the Braves would be able to clinch the division with their next win or the next Mets loss. So yeah, I mean, like I said, really, this is really going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, I mean, the first 2 games, like I said, you have the battle of your aces. Obviously, DeGrom, Scherzer on the bump. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out for the Mets, for the Braves. The Mets have seen the Braves plenty of times this season, and vice versa. We kind of know the Braves rule book by now, their playbook. They're a hot home run team, high strikeout team. So we'll see how that works out for them there. Obviously, got a decent amount of lefties in that lineup, so we'll see how the Mets pitching can go after that. Obviously, the Mets are facing left-handed pitching tonight in Max Fried. Can the Mets go after him? We know that the Mets have had their complexities when it comes to power against lefties. So like I said, try to get to Fried early on and keep it. Like I said, I don't expect this to be a high-scoring series. Maybe game 3, I could see a high-scoring game. But for the first 2 games, for game 1 and 2, I really don't see a 7-5 type game. I'm really seeing like a 2-0, 2-1, 4-2, something around that. I really don't expect it to be a high run series. So like I said, this is probably going to determine the division. The Mets control their own destiny, and likewise goes for the Braves. So going to be a really interesting series, to say for the least. So now that we kind of got that out of the way, let's go over some of your guys' comments, questions, concerns. If you guys have any comments, if you guys have any questions, anything related to the New York Mets, anything related to the Atlanta Braves, the San Diego Padres, anything, Mets related, MLB related. It doesn't have to be completely Mets. I know it says Mets talk, but in reality, it's, baseball talk. If you have any comments, any questions, anything, drop it below. Like I said, do not hesitate. So we will go into all of that. But what is going on? Gio, Peter, Mark, Trey, Alex, Devin, Robert Manfred, what's going on, man? Gio, Chris, Alvaro, what's going on, man? Stony, Marco, what's going on? He says, what's new in Metsland? Yeah, Mets Braves tonight. Probably going to likely determine the division. It's going to be a huge, huge, huge series for both of these ball clubs to play. So that'll be tonight. 3-game series starts tonight, so keep an eye out for that, obviously. Appreciate it, Christopher. Yeah, I really do like this hat. I bought this hat at Citi Field in 2019 when I went. I bought it, I think it was like $30 or so, so not horrible. Nice snapback. It is one of my favorite Mets hats. I know I don't wear it a whole lot, but definitely one of my favorite Mets hats to say. YouTube Productions, what's going on? I did hear that. Yeah, I actually I live in Florida, so luckily for me, I was not really hit hard by the hurricane. I obviously live on the east coast of Florida, southeast, so I wasn't really hit hard. But obviously, thoughts and prayers do go out to everyone that was affected, whether you live anywhere in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, or wherever the hurricane path is going. So everyone, obviously stay safe. That is the number one, concern for everyone, is to stay safe. Michael, what's going on? Eric, he says, hey, Hayden, let's go Mets. Huge series tonight. Absolutely. Kobe says, hey, Hayden, what's up? Super excited for this upcoming series. 100%, man. Trey, what's going on? Trey says, I said it before and I'll say it again. In the playoffs, the 7, 8, and 9 hole in the lineup will be the X factor for us, regardless of who they are. I agree with you. I mean, right now we've seen a lot of stints for the Mets throughout the season where, the bottom of the lineup has lately been producing much better than lately. Obviously, we've been seeing much better production from the catcher's offense, whether that's McCann or mainly Nito for the most part. We've been seeing a lot better production from the lower end of this order. And then, you mix that on top of your 1, 2, 3, 4 hitters of, a Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso. Yeah, that's going to be some pretty nasty elite stuff down the line. So like I said, if, this Mets bottom of the lineup can continue to produce, you could really expect some good ball games to come for them ahead. And I agree with you. Connor says how Francisco Alvarez's call-up can impact the Mets in Atlanta and in the postseason. So, yeah, I do, I guess, kind of want to quickly go over that. Obviously, the New York Mets are calling up their top prospect in Francisco Alvarez. That is right. The 20-year-old will be making his major league debut. They are promoting him to the New York Mets roster. Obviously, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Mets 20-year-old catcher pans out for them. Obviously, AAA ball is over. Minor league season is really in the books, and that kind of made it seem, well, what do you do with Alvarez? Obviously, Alvarez is the number 1 prospect in baseball. Don't need to go over that. We all know that. And he had a pretty good season in AAA. Obviously, he got called up to AAA just this past summer. I believe it was in July, August. He got the call up to AAA, spent the year starting off in AA, did phenomenal there, got the call up to AAA, and he looked pretty good for the most part. I mean, this season in double in AAA, he batted .260, 27 homers, 78 ribbies, and an .885 OPS, and that is combined in AA Binghamton and AAA Syracuse. So, I mean, it's a really interesting approach to see how the Mets are going to want to go after this. Obviously, Alvarez, catcher, right-handed hitter, is most likely going to be the New York Mets DH against lefties. That is something that the Mets are going to do tonight. Obviously, like I said, Max Fried, lefty, is on the bump for the Mets tonight, for the Braves tonight. My apologies. So the Mets are going to put Francisco Alvarez out there to hit against the left-handed pitching, considering you brought in Darren Ruff at the trade deadline. And what is Ruff doing? Ruff was projected to have a 900 OPS against left-handed pitching, and he hasn't even been doing anything against right-handed pitching or left-handed pitching. So the Mets pretty much said, you know what? It's really not going to hurt you. It's not going to, there's no harm in it, considering how horrible Darren Ruff has been for this New York Mets team. There's absolutely zero harm in calling up Francisco Alvarez and having him take the at-bats against lefties instead of Darren Ruff. And honestly, I have no problem with that. Do I think he's going to catch? No. I think they just want him to get the at-bats, and that's what he is more known for. I mean, I don't think Alvarez is, mainly known for his dominant defense. He is more known for his bat. That's something that I think anyone could really tell you. So, I mean, like I said, we're going to see how the Mets go after this. How interested they're going to be to go after Alvarez hitting against left-handed pitching, whether it comes to this upcoming series, the National Series, and, of course, the playoffs. So super exciting. I mean, I'm really happy to see Alvarez get called up. Absolutely mind-boggling to see that he is the youngest player in MLB right now. Obviously, he is 20 years old, was born in November. So he is yet to be 21 also. So super interesting. Going to be excited to see Francisco Alvarez finally get a crack at the major leagues. Really made it up the farm system quickly, I'll say that. Obviously, starting off this year in AA, obviously in spring training, he, worded out, I would like to make the roster this season. I would love to be on, I would love to make it to the MLB this season. And boom, he's here. He is at the MLB, obviously with a week left. But, I mean, hey, it works. I guess even if it was the last game, it works. So really tip of the cap to Francisco Alvarez. He really worked hard. Super excited to see how that works. Like I said, is he going to catch? Probably not. I mean, maybe considering if something happens, but not expecting it. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, Cal, on the Alvarez call-up. I think it's going to be something really interesting to see how the Mets are going to really go about this, how they're going to place Alvarez, and how is Alvarez going to suit at the MLB level. So we'll see. Michael says, can't wait to see the Mets finally play baseball in late October. Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. Super excited for it. Alex says DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett. That's the 1-2-3 playoff punch in the rotation for this series. Yes, that is going to be the 1-2-3 punch this series. They are starting off clean, and that is your most likely your 1-2-3 playoff punch in the postseason. So, like I said, I mean, Braves, they're a playoff team. Mets are a playoff team. So this could be a little, pre-postseason kind of summary, I guess you could say. The GOAT, absolutely. Yeah, Trey. I mean, it's possible that this could be an NLCS. Obviously, this would most likely mean in the scenario the Mets or the Dodgers win the division, they would either have to beat one of three, which could technically be considered the Phillies, Brewers, and Padres, I believe it is. And then for the wild card spot, they would have to beat the Dodgers. So, I mean, if both of those things do happen, then we definitely will see a Mets Braves NLCS. So that'll be a pretty exciting matchup. Sports fan says, are Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor the best RBI duo in Mets history? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say they're the best. Actually, you probably could. Considering what Alonso has been doing this year, obviously Alonso has how many RBIs? He broke the single season record. RBIs, he has 131 RBIs this season, where Francisco Lindor has 100 and Lindor has 100, and of course it's going to do that. We'll say he has 102, maybe 103. He has 103. So, I mean, we've seen it in the past, obviously, in the early thousands with, Beltran Wright. So, I mean, it's been seen before where we've seen 100-plus RBI duos. But, now I guess it's going to be a little bit more of a frequent thing with the Mets, considering that you have phenomenal guys hitting back-to-back. Obviously, Alonso and Lindor usually hitting in the 3 and 4 hole. So, both of those guys are going to be able to help their RBI stats out big time. And who knows, maybe if there's some games where Pete's batting second, Lindor's batting third, or you never know, they switch up the lineup occasionally. Boom, helps them out there. So I absolutely think that do I think it's the best duo? But it's definitely a top 2, top 3. Sports fan Kobe says, what's the biggest strength and weakness for the postseason? I think the absolute biggest strength and weakness for the Mets, honestly, would probably be something for the Mets offense. I think that would be the biggest. I think the biggest strength would be their rotation, the depth that they have. But I think the overall biggest weakness for them would probably be the inconsistencies offensively. I really worry how this team could, we've seen this team get into offensive slumps for a couple games, but in the playoffs, you can't do that. It's one thing if they're doing it in June or August or, against the Marlins in game 1, but you can't have your whole team slump in a 3-game series. That's elimination. So that's the biggest, I guess, kind of weakness I would say is the inconsistencies offensively. I really do worry how this team can go when it comes to being consistency. Blake, what's going on, man? Appreciate you tuning in, bud. What's going on? Cal says, are the Mets going to have Francisco Alvarez play catcher or just DH? I'd say just DH. I get it that Alvarez is mainly known for his bat, not his defense, I would say. So as of now, just have him hit against left-handed pitching, considering you're replacing Ruff in that scenario, most likely. I think it's good to have him, there just in case something happens. Keep in mind, he has caught DeGrom and Scherzer this year in AAA and AA during both of their rehab assignments. So, they have experience catching and pitching to each other. But, you have Neal and McCann. Unless one of them goes down or something, then I only see Alvarez really DHing. Blake says, I'm going to the game tonight, bro. Be prepared for battle. That's awesome, man. Hopefully you have a good time. Obviously going to be sure the stadium is going to be electric. Going to be exciting. Yeah, Jose says DH. Yeah, Jose, I'd agree with you. Most likely it's only going to be a DH. Like I said, unless one of them get hurt, I don't see Alvarez catching. Michael says, do you think Buck Showalter will win Manager of the Year? Yeah. I can't really think of many other guys. I think I could think of some other guys who had good, Manager years, but I think it has to be Showalter 100%. all this delay for a Mets Braves NLCS. Yeah, I mean it's a strong possibility that this can be an NLCS. Very strong possibility. Christopher says, does Vogelbach still have a hamstring issue? Yeah, so I know he is back on the roster, I believe, but I don't really know what the Mets are necessarily doing with him. Obviously, is that really a complaint? Well, considering how poorly he's been, I don't know, the last month with the Mets, I don't really think many people are concerned. Obviously, I want him to be well, his physical well-being, but I don't think many Mets fans are really worried about him coming back on the roster. Obviously, he did have a really rough night against the Marlins the other night, striking out 2 times, 0 for 4. I mean, he had an okay series against the A's, nothing crazy. But when it comes to Vogelbach, I mean, we've said it enough. He's not really anything that's been panned out. His on-base percentage is there. I mean, he's walking, but when it comes to it, if he's going to do that, then bat him leadoff. He's your power hitter. I want more than walks. Listen, get on base, pass the baton. That's a good analogy. But guys like Alonso, Vogelbach, Lindor, I want to see home runs. I want to see doubles out of these guys, not walks, strikeout, walk. No, unless he's your leadoff hitter, which he's not. So, yeah, we'll honestly see how things go down the line for Vogelbach. I mean, considering right now it seems that the Mets have more of an interest in DHing Vientos, DHing Escobar, DHing Guillorme. I don't think the Mets are going to have an interest in playing Vogelbach much now. LFGM, absolutely. Kobe says, tonight is the real star for the playoffs. Time to use all of our ammo in the bullpen. Get that sweep so they could rest for the last series. Yeah, like I said, going to be a big series tonight. Seth says, Alvarez getting called up is what is going to break Mark Vientos out of his shell. And I was actually thinking that having Alvarez up, could that maybe ignite something in Mark Vientos? And we've been seeing Vientos has been swinging the bat much better lately. I mean, he's been having a much better approach at the plate. He's not swinging at all these sliders in the dirt and the high-end fastball. He's controlling his chase rate. He's walking. He actually had like 3 walks, in the A's series, so that was a surprise. So like I said, he's hitting the ball well. I mean, we're starting to see some of that power. Obviously, he had a great series last series ago when he had that home run and 2 doubles. So, he's starting to hit the ball much better. We're starting to see his power. So, if that could be the case, then, that could be really something good for the Mets and Mark Vientos. Like I said, having both of those guys who have, played in the minor leagues together and then at the major league level together, that could definitely ignite something. Too bad that Beatty isn't there, obviously. He's injured, but Urza, what's going on? Urza says, calling up Alvarez shows that they are going all in. They are taking a risk. Yeah, I mean, like I said, at this point, what is there to lose? I mean, if he goes 0 for 3 with a walk, 0 for 4 with a strikeout, whatever, what do you have to lose? Darren Ruff is doing the same exact thing. Trey says, who should be the number 4 starter in the playoffs, Carrasco or Walker? That's a good question. When it really comes to it, as of right now, I would probably say Walker. When it comes to Carlos Carrasco, I get it. You have that playoff experience, and I've kind of said that in the last couple streams. But when it comes to Carrasco right now, I really worry with that first inning. We've seen Carrasco. I mean, I'm not saying he's doing what he did last year, but he gets that pitch count high in the first inning. He really struggles the first inning. And then he's Tom Seaver, 2 through the 6th inning. Can't have that. So when it comes to it right now with Carrasco, I have no problem putting him in a bullpen role. I really don't. No problem putting up in a bullpen role. Blake says 3 catchers are common in the playoffs too, especially with the taxi squad. Yeah. That's another good point. Alex says, hey, let's freaking go Tigers. Absolutely, man. Jed says, predictions for Alvarez tonight. I'll say he'll get like 1 hit. Maybe I think he'll get like a little bloop single. The lineup is out. Okay, let's go over this lineup all right. MLB. I spelled that wrong. MLB. So let's go over this lineup. See what's going on with the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves tonight. The lineup has been released for both teams, so we'll go over both. Why not? Obviously, the Atlanta. Go for the Mets first. Obviously, I'll just do Twitter and I'll switch off to Mets and Braves Twitter. Francisco Alvarez will wear number 50. Interesting. So, yeah, the lineup is out tonight. Obviously, batting first, we have the center fielder, Brandon Nimmo. Batting second, little interesting thing, we have the first baseman, Pete Alonso. So it seems that the Mets are really digging this Pete Alonso batting two scenario. We know that, nowadays your RBI producer usually bats second. And we're starting to see that a little bit more now. Interesting choice that the Mets are going with that. I'm guessing they're seeing how well Alonso is swinging the bat lately. Obviously, Alonso has been really hitting a hot bat that they want him in that 2-hole. Obviously, Nimmo gets on, boom, you have Alonso up. Could, double down the line, something home run. So the Mets are really digging Alonso in that 2-hole. And honestly, I have no problem with it. I really have no problem with Alonso batting second or third compared to fourth. So we'll see how things go for them tonight. So like I said, batting first, we have the center fielder, Brandon Nimmo. Batting second, we obviously have the first baseman, Big Meat Pete Alonso. And I lost the lineup. Of course I did. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, batting second, the first baseman, Pete Alonso. Batting third, the shortstop, Francisco Lindor. Batting fourth in cleanup, Mark Canha, the left fielder. Batting fifth, the right fielder, Jeff McNeil, hoping to try and get that batting title this year. We'll see. Batting sixth, the third baseman, Eduardo Escobar. Batting seventh, the designated hitter, Francisco Alvarez. I've waited so long to say that. Francisco Alvarez will be batting seventh in the DH hole. Batting eighth, the second baseman, Luis Guillorme. And, of course, batting ninth behind the plate, Tomas Nido, and of course, starting pitcher for tonight, Jacob deGrom. So obviously, interesting lineup tonight. Like I said, interesting that the Mets are, putting Pete in that second hole. And like I said, I have no issue with it. I think it's interesting to see the Mets take that little interesting part about putting Pete in the second hole. I've said it. RBI producer usually goes second nowadays, and that's what the Mets are wanting to do with Alonso. I mean, you have a lot of talent. I know with Marte gone, the top of the order is a little messed up, but it's interesting to see how this is going to go. So, interesting lineup tonight, obviously. No major concerns when I look at the lineup, I guess. Yeah, I think it's a decent lineup. I don't really have any major complaints. Maybe Canha batting cleanup's a little weird. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with McNeil maybe batting cleanup, but whatever. Maybe even Escobar, considering how well Escobar has been hitting the bat. So, we'll see. So, that is the New York Mets lineup. We'll get into the Braves. Why not? We'll get into the Braves lineup, see what they got going on tonight. I briefly saw a little glimpse at it. So obviously the Braves lineup is up. Obviously, batting first, they will have the right fielder Ronald Acuna Jr. Batting second, the shortstop Dansby Swanson. Batting third, the center fielder Michael Harris the second. Obviously, he's been a big part to the Braves' second half success. Batting fourth, third baseman, Austin Riley. Batting fifth, the first baseman, Matt Olson. Batting sixth, the catcher behind the plate, Travis d'Arnaud. Batting seventh in the DH hole, William Contreras. Batting eighth, the left fielder, Eddie Rosario. And, of course, batting ninth, the second baseman, Orlando Arcia. And, of course, on the bump, the Atlanta Braves will have the lefty Max Fried. So that is the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves lineup and starters for tonight. Going to be super interesting to see how both of these teams go head-to-head. Very exciting. Cal, let's get back to the comments. Cal says, how many wins will the Mets finish with this season? So they're at 98 right now, 6 games to play. I say they'll get like 102. I think that's fair. Ruff is on the IL. That is correct. He is. Michael says, what should be the 1-2-3 punch for the Mets this postseason? 1-2-3 punch is probably going to be DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett. Maybe they go Scherzer, DeGrom, Bassett. I personally don't see that, but I think a lot of people would bet money that would be the 1-2-3 punch for the Mets in the playoffs. I have no problem with it being, DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett. Bassett definitely gets that 3 spot. He deserves it. I mean, DeGrom, Scherzer, no need to explain. Elite, dominant playoff experience. Bassett, he's been consistent. 30th game of the season tonight. Health, he's been fine. So, yeah, I think it would be really nice to see Bassett get that number 3 hole. And he's definitely earned it. He's definitely played like a number 3 starter, arguably a number 2 in any other rotation. Alvarez, 2 for 3 with the homer and 3 RBIs. All right. So Jose has a little, some good confidence in Alvarez tonight. I hope he gets that. We'll see. Yes, hopefully you did see the lineup. Connor says Francisco Alvarez will wear 50. I did see that. Kobe says, will the Orioles make the playoffs? I think if the Blue Jays or Rays win one more game, then I think they're mathematically eliminated. So that would suck. But honestly, I personally don't think the Orioles are going to make the playoffs. But you know what? Tip of the cap to them. They had a huge, big bounce back season compared to the last, 5, 6 that they've had. I think the Orioles are in a really good spot for the next couple of years. I really do. I think they have some good stuff coming down the line. So yeah, super exciting for them. Gio says the Mets seem like they have it all. They are a gritty team that never gives up. Congratulations to Buck Showalter. Yeah, no, I mean, I really think Showalter has done amazing things for this New York Mets ball club. Obviously, the phenomenal stuff he's been able to accomplish. And I mean, simply enough, this year you had a lot of big bounce back seasons. Obviously, McNeil, Lindor, big bounce back seasons. You brought in some additions this year. Guys like Marte, guys like Escobar, obviously guys like Canna, obviously both, helping down that pitching staff with guys like Max Scherzer. The bullpen had their flaws, but definitely Edwin Diaz having arguably one of his best seasons, maybe besides 2018, arguably close, having it this season with the Mets. So obviously, Showalter's been a huge factor to a lot of the Mets' success, making a lot of smart in-game decision plays. Whether, I guess, the bullpen, he could be a little poorly cognizant with that. But as of right now, I think no doubt Showalter is manager of the year. Really, no doubt about it. And I agree with you. Mets, gritty team, never give up. Game's not over till the last pitch. Yeah, I don't know what it is with the Orioles. Maybe they needed that veteran presence. But yeah, it just seems that, they got a little screwed by the Blue Jays. I think they had like 3-game series against the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays owned them in it. And that really kind of set them straight, I guess, for the rest of the season for them. So, like I said, really unfortunate. I kind of wanted the Orioles to make the playoffs. I mean, who knows? They, mathematically still can. But when it comes to it right now, I think they're in good hands for next year. Obviously, their future is here. Obviously, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. So it's going to be very exciting down the line for the Orioles. Their pitching staff, a lot of veterans really picking it up. So, I mean, down the line, next season, they could really have a big year for them. I'm expecting good stuff for them. I don't think they'll be a 5th-place team anymore. I think they have a good future down the line. Need the Rangers to bring back Joey Gallo too. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Gallo's been doing pretty well in LA, but I agree with you. I think they'll probably – I mean, I don't know if he's set to free agency this offseason or when he's set to free agency, but when it comes to Gallo, wherever, if he's going to play well in LA, best of luck to him. I mean, to be honest, he's been a player I kind of completely forgot about. I mean, he was so irrelevant for the Yankees. I mean, he wasn't doing anything. And I guess just the change of scenery for him in New York was really a big thing for him going to LA. Trace says, how do you feel about the Mets putting Mark Vientos in the playoffs for the Mets this year in 2022? Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. Like I said, considering right now, I mean, you don't really have much options. I mean, would you rather Darren Ruff? No. And I mean, listen, I think it's definitely a lot to ask for when it comes to Mark Vientos. It's a lot to ask for a 21-year-old rookie player who's only been at the league for what, a month worth, 2 months worth. So I think it's definitely a lot to ask when it comes to that. But you know what? You hope they can grind the at-bats and really, try and do the best they can. I will say this. Vientos is looking much better at the plate. He really is. He's maturing with his swing. He's definitely not chasing as crazy. So we'll see. I mean, I definitely think I have a little bit more confidence than Vientos than Ruff. But the risk, you don't have much depth when it comes to the DH. Besides, guys like Ruff, obviously. Urza says Orioles are going to be good in 2023 if they make the right trades. Not going to lie. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think when it comes to it, I think the Orioles, a couple good moves in the offseason, maybe, one nice veteran bat, a nice veteran arm, and, maybe some two arms. They'll be a good team. Urza says Mets expected to win 95 games and be in second. We are beyond people's expectations. Exactly. And, and I understand why a lot of people didn't think the Mets would do it this year. I mean, same way 2021, 2020. It always happens. I mean, we've talked about it on the channel before, but when it comes to it, a lot of the people say, oh, Mets second half collapse is what they're prone for. Okay, I get it. You have 07, you have 08, last week in September. Okay. But I mean, really, besides that, I mean, okay, 2021 was a really interesting year to say because the Mets were just an average team all year. They were always around 500, and they just had no competition in really the first half and the beginning of the second half. And Braves got hot, and then they started to play above average. So, I don't know. Last year was really rough. I mean, maybe you can make the argument also for last year. 2020, that was a shit year. I'm not even going to mention that. 2019, they actually had a great second half. So, I mean, that's the reason that they finished over 500 was because their second half 2019 season. So, I mean, like I said, Mets, you have new ownership. It's a new, I don't want to use the term dynasty, but it's a new era. It really is. This is no longer the Wilpon, Brody Van Wagenen, entourage, knuckleheads running around. You have an owner that's willing to spend, and you have a GM that is cognizant with what's going on and is willing to, strengthen that farm and strengthen this ball club to do the best of things. So, like I said, the Mets really do have a good future ahead. I mean, simply enough, you look at the guys you have now: Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Starling Marte. You got some younglings in the pack: Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos. Maybe 2-3 years down the line, you still, obviously have Alex Ramirez, a couple of those other guys in Double and Triple A. The pitching is Mets have always been known for, creating and building great pitching. But, you have DeGrom, you have Scherzer, obviously, have Bassett. You got some decent arms. I get it. Maybe in the farm system, Mets could definitely expand on their pitching. You have Calvin Ziegler, one guy who I am actually looking forward to progressing in Single A. I think he could definitely be an interesting guy down the line. But Mets are going to have to really build on their pitching when it comes to it. I mean, Matt Allen, hopefully, he finishes up his Tommy John and can get back to AAA, and he could be another guy to keep an eye out for. So I think the Mets really do have some good stuff down the line. I really do. Sports Fan says, how do you feel about the pitch clock for next year? I like it. I really don't have any major complaints about it. I like it. I think it's good. I think it'll speed up the game. For the diehards like myself, I have no problem sitting there for 10 hours watching a game. But for the casuals, which make up, a lot, they don't want to see that. So I think you kind of got to accommodate the majority than the minority like me who are diehards. Like I said, baseball's a sport where majority of it are casual fans. It's not like, any other sport. There's only so many diehard fans. And, I guess a lot of people find baseball boring, unfortunately, because, you take 20 seconds in between each pitch to, shake your hat, lick your hand, do whatever you do. So, yeah, like I said, I think it's interesting. I mean, I've seen that, obviously have in the minor leagues, they have that. Obviously, the AAA Syracuse Mets have the pitch clock, and they put that recording next to, an MLB game. And I mean, minor league had a 5, and the major league was only at 2 in terms of pitches. So it really speeds it up. Really does. Who's just going to put more pressure on? It's interesting. Chris Bassett said that it's going to put pressure on the hitters, but then Francisco Lindor said it's going to be pressure on the pitchers. So we'll see. I mean, is it going to affect the pitchers more, the hitters more, maybe a little bit of both, equal? So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this goes. Next year is going to be interesting. Obviously, having the shift banned or limited. The bigger bases, I don't really think are going to mean much. I mean, maybe you'll see a slight increase in stolen bases, and I have no problem with that. I love fundamental baseball. I like classic baseball, stealing bases. So maybe you'll see more of that, which is a good. But the pitch clocker is going to be interesting. Pitch clock and shift going to be interesting. Gregory says, what is the news with Joey Lucchesi? So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to it right now with Joey Lucchesi, I believe he is still rehabbing, but now it's over. So, yeah, he's going to have to figure something else out on what they're going to do with Joey Lucchesi. Do they add him to the roster before the playoffs, maybe that national series, and they could use him as that lefty, long depth reliever type guy? I think that's definitely something that the Mets probably could explore, and something they probably will explore, and I'd say. Trey says, is it time for Mets to move from Darren Ruff to Mark Vientos? Absolutely. And the Mets have already said that they are onto that. So I have no problem with that. I really don't. We got healthy. Yeah, no, Blake. I mean, the Braves got healthy. And I agree with you. Urza says Mets could build a dynasty. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Kobe says, will Jeff McNeil win a Gold Glove or Silver Slugger this season? Probably. I mean, McNeil is a great player, but there's really no competition at second base this year that's been healthy. I mean, Chisholm missed a lot of the season. Albies, unfortunately, missed a lot of the season. Jake Cronenworth, unfortunately, is not himself from last year. Adam Frazier's in the AL, and he's not even that great anymore. So, yeah, I think it's kind of really Jeff McNeil or really nobody else. So, we'll see how things go there. Lucas says, I also think that they want a third catcher for the postseason in case McCann or Nito get hurt. Everything about this makes sense. No, I agree. So tired of the James McCann experiment, but I temper my enthusiasm till the kid proves he could do it at the major league level. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with Alvarez, just get him the major league at bats and then focus on him making the club next year, which he probably will make it out of spring training. When it comes to McCann, it's not even worth going on a 10-minute rant. I've done those enough this season. So, yeah. So, probably going to call it a stream here, honestly, though. If you guys, like I said, we're probably going to call it a stream here. Obviously, I really do appreciate everyone for tuning in to today's stream. As always, you guys have been phenomenal with the comments, the questions, all the great stuff. In the comments section below. You guys have been phenomenal with that. So please really keep up the great support on the channel. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like I said, obviously in today's stream, we did go over the New York Mets and, of course, the Miami Marlins series summary. We summarized all that. Then, of course, we went over the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves series preview, one of the biggest series for both of these ball clubs this season. So we'll see how these two teams could go against each other. Then, of course, we did go over a lot of Mets news in relation to the Mets farm system, Mets playoff hopes, all of that great stuff. So, yeah, went over some great stuff. As always, everyone, please smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, tell your friends about this channel. If you're rewatching this on replay, kudos to you for rewatching this for a full-on hour. You're a legend. Appreciate it. And, yeah, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell so you never miss a stream. If you want to follow me on my social medias, knock yourself out. It's scrolling down below. You can follow me on Instagram. I don't really use it a whole lot, but yeah. And you can follow me on Twitter, which is where I usually post a lot of my, if I'm going to be live streaming and all of that great stuff. So, yeah, that is really all I got. Really do appreciate everyone for tuning into today's stream as always. Like I said, Mets control their own destiny. We'll see. It's going to be a really, really super exciting series. I really do appreciate everyone for tuning into today's stream as always. It's been phenomenal. Loving the support on the channel lately. It's been phenomenal. Keep up the support, everyone. It's been phenomenal. Otherwise, that's all I got today. And, yeah, otherwise, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Till next time, baseball fans, see ya.